The Red Voice. Pavithra Perera is an artist, an activist, a writer from Sri Lanka, living and working in Amsterdam, Netherlands. She's coming from a law educational background and found her creative process to battle the traumas of her life. Her art itself moved her further to share her findings and healing process through a foundation, the Hope House of Ceylon. Now she has dedicated her life to develop the advocation of human rights and art, and to give voice and refuge to more like her. Her passion for art focuses on stories of human beings, social issues brushed under the rug in Asian society. She finds the human face to be the medium that appears on a canvas with a loud voice telling the stories. She arrived at Space A Art Residency in Kathmandu at the beginning of October, with a mission in her heart to give a voice to faces in Nepal who were not being heard aloud.
Going from Colombo to Kathuapitiya, which is in Negombo area, so 2 hours, 3 hours drive, sometimes every day, sometimes every other day. I was going there, sitting with them, spending time, talking to them, and doing portraits with them. It was hard. I wasn't prepared for that because when I planned the exhibition, the bombing wasn't there. I have no formal education in art. I'm a self-taught. I'm an amateur artist. My first love is for photography. I started with photography. I was always fascinated with the human face, and I was obsessed with doing portraits and catching their emotions and stories. But later in life, I started working with BBC as a journalist, and I was traveling with the tube every morning, and then the camera wasn't enough for me, and it is not easy to take pictures without asking permission sometimes, and you spend so much time sitting in front of another person, and then when you find an interesting human face, you want to capture the feelings and emotions. That's how I started actually. And then later, while I was studying law in London, while working in BBC, I faced a lot of flashbacks from my traumatic experience of life. And I needed a way to cope with it. And yes, I was seeing a therapist and getting counseling, but at the same time, I needed a space of my own. I needed an activity where I can be completely free, without judgment, feel free to express myself. And I found art, drawing is that space, is that activity. So I started drawing. I'm a writer from the beginning. I think that is the first expression of art. I'm a poet. I write poetry. But my sisters were really good at art. They were really good at drawing, and they took classes, art classes at high school as well. But me, I never discovered it till really late in my life. So actually, no, I did not have huge experience or any particular incident that I can say, okay, this is where I started drawing. No. Drawing came to me through photography, through human face, wanting more, want to capture more than a single second of a human face and emotions. Because when you're capturing through camera lens, it is limited to one emotion or whatever that person is feeling at that moment. But when you're doing a portrait, when you're doing a live sitting, that person is in front of you for a longer period, and the interaction without a single word, it is a lot and more honest, more genuine. The artist who is drawing and the person who is sitting both interact in a different dimension for me, and that experience itself changed my life. I started when I was in grade 8, so at about 13, 14 years old, I started with my camera and in my school in Sri Lanka, and I had a great teacher, Hagoda. He's one of the best artists in Sri Lanka for photography, and I learned under him. After that, I couldn't put away the camera. I started seeing the world through the lens. At 17, I started at Rupavahini Corporation, the state media of Sri Lanka, and I started as a presenter, TV presenter. It was a program about current affairs. We were talking about what is happening in the world. It's a morning program, so we would talk about the situation in every different country, the main news, and we would have a guest to talk about it, the political situation, the art, the culture. And it's a half an hour program, and I was the presenter. And then slowly I moved into the newsroom, working with them, preparing scripts, and I worked there nearly 2.5 years. I was doing my higher education, and then I moved to London to do my LLB, law degree. And then meanwhile I started working in BBC, and it became full-time, so I worked there 3.5 years. And then I moved to Netherlands, Maastricht, to do my master's in international law and human relations. So I got really interested in human rights, and I completed my master's in human rights, international human rights. Well, the photos always it was a purpose behind it. So while I was working in BBC, it's for the stories that I reported, the human interest stories, and maybe sometimes biopics about people. And in between, I used to just photograph people, try to capture the emotions and the sceneries. But more I go into it, I developed this passion for photography to cover a human story. So I would photograph a person, at the same time I would have a beautiful discussion with them about their life, about the battles that they have succumbed, and the obstacles, and the survival of their life. And then it became a part of a process, understanding other people, trying to connect with them, trying to find where I belong with my unique experiences of life, trauma that I have experienced. So it became a communication method for me, actually. As I said, there was a moment that the photographing wasn't enough. I wanted more time with the face. I wanted more time with the emotions and the stories. So I started drawing. My first love was charcoal, and still is the medium. I liked the sound of charcoal, the way it draws, and the way I can erase, the way I can mark all these wrinkles and all the experience. I think the human face is a recording device, that every single emotion, every single life experience that we record through our face. And if you know the art of reading it, then you have a different level of communication with that person. So this is how the portraits began. And with that, I started the foundation, because it was really close to my mental health care. When I started drawing, it was my therapy. Drawing and connecting with other people's story, it was my way of expressing myself and not be afraid and own my story. And how much I benefited from it, I wanted it to introduce to my country, because when I think about Sri Lanka and the situation there, we had 30 years of civil war, and after that I think the young generation, they have lots of issues when it's come to mental health care, and it is a stigmatized subject in my country. There's lot stigma around it, and people are scared to talk about it. People are scared to even tell another person that I'm stressed, or I'm in this space of mind that I need help. So I thought, like, with all the benefits I got in Europe, getting into therapy, drug-free therapy especially, because most of the time in South Asia, as I found, they drug you into a level that you are not conscious, you're not in your right state of mind. But that is not what you need. You need to process your trauma, you need to talk about your experiences, you need to come out of it knowingly. So art therapy helped me a lot. I'm working with a team there, and I started my foundation named the Hope House of Ceylon, and that's where I found my kind of stage. That's where I found my platform to talk about art therapy and advocate for mental health care. This is my journey. The art is not alone. The art came with the photography. From there, it transformed into another level where I got benefited, and I wanted Sri Lankan people, Sri Lankan young generation to reap the benefit out of it. I was studying human rights, and I started my studies in Netherlands. That's when I wrote the first proposal and pitched to a few of my friends and my professors, and they were really excited about the idea, and then I was able to make it happen within nearly 1.5 years, 2 years. We had the launch of my foundation in Sri Lanka with a solo exhibition. I worked with bomb attack survivors, East Day bombings in Sri Lanka, nearly 3 months, and I did a series of portraits. It's a team that we don't have assigned responsibilities, but it is a team. I'm working with 2 other foundations as well. So one of the foundations called Vibavi, Wafa, they facilitated me, they helped me to spread the idea and talk about it and build up a discussion there and launch the project especially. And now I am in contact with the Ceylon Youth Movement. It is another young people's organization that I'm working with. So like that, with few groups, I'm working about my projects. And in Maastricht, I found a group of people to work with me as well. So I'm slowly developing the project, and we have designed an art therapy center to build in Europe, and then bring that idea, use it as a model, and then bring it to Sri Lanka, and hopefully one day South Asia. First of all, when we started talking about it, when we brought the idea first, there wasn't much response because they did not know what we are talking about. It was little bit new. There were some people doing it, but there wasn't much talk about it. There wasn't much education around the subject. And as I said, the education and knowing about it and be brave to come front and talk about it was less. But I think we started at a good point, and we started a discussion, and it's slowly, I think, among the people now, and I'm hoping to work more. As I said, in Nepal, before I started my residency, I was traveling around Nepal for 2 weeks nearly, and I visited several areas. One is been Chittavan, Megauli, and there I met Tharu people and the Tharu women, and I visited their Jitiya festival, and I got to know about their culture and everything, and I have this passion to find out their livelihood, what is happening, and what can make their life elevated, what can make them speak their mind, what can be done more. And what I saw is that many of them are married in very young age, and it struck me in a way that I think at an age they should be carrying books and going to school. They were carrying the whole responsibility of a family on their shoulders. They were very reserved. A way of expressing themselves or talking about themselves were very foreign to them. It really stayed with me, that fact, and these pieces that are hanging behind me. influenced by that experience and inspired by that experience, that I think in a society when women are educated, you can see the difference. You can see that the whole society is elevated. You can see the opportunities that they might get and the level of lifestyle elevation. So I think this is a worth course drawing for and worth course talking about. I happen to speak a little bit of Hindi. It's not very good, but it was enough to communicate with them. And even the Nepali, the language, is really close to Hindi. So even though I do not speak Nepali, when they speak, I was able to grasp most of the idea or the holistic story what they're saying. And I had a wonderful guide, so he helped me to communicate with them. Few of them were little forward and was happy to talk to me. Some of them were not. And what I saw is that their age and at what age they got married and how much money they have to spend to go to school and how it is not available for everybody. And the responsibilities and how much work they do in a family and how less their opinion mattered. And how less their opinion mattered when it's come to how many children they're going to bear. Are they going to school or not? So the patriarchal society was harsh there when it's come to more rural areas. I'm not talking about Kathmandu, but I'm talking about far away Magauli, and I visited Lumbini. There I spoke to few village women, and the little I was able to communicate, what I felt was that their life choices are made for them and they are not in a state or a place to talk for themselves and stand up for themselves. And the healthcare and the practices, life practices were really low comparing to city women who were educated, who had the opportunity to find their livelihood in other ways. So this struck me and this concerned me. I wanted to talk about it, advocate for their education, advocate for their stories, advocate for the opportunities that they will have in future. I am talking to a few people in Nepal, and I visited Unnati Cultural Center as well. It is in somewhere in between Lumbini and Megauli. I visited it after visiting Chitwan, and I can see there's a lot of facilities there. I can see that there's people who can make it happen, and I'm planning to speak to some of them in this visit and see what it will bring me. I think this month I will work really hard and there will be an open studio. For now, that is the plan. But I want to take this message, take this story to Europe and to places that where capable Nepali people are, that they would pick the message and there will be something we can do. Because I think I'm planning to bring this to Amsterdam and talk about this, maybe, if possible, have an exhibition about the body of work I have created in Kathmandu over a month. So this is only, I'm only in the second week of my residency, and I can see that the energy and the amount of issues that I want to discuss and the stories that I have collected in my travels are still there with me, and there's much more to do. The portraits in Amsterdam. Yeah, I'm working with a lot of people, and some of them in the journey that I am going through in my life. When I meet somebody that there's a story worth telling, there is an expression worth drawing, then I am keen on drawing, I'm keen on getting them on a chair in front of me and talk to them and share my story with them. Most of the sessions ends with them telling me that they had a great experience communicating with me without words, but having that basic human to human contact while I'm drawing, while they are concentrating on keeping still. This process have so much into it that I'm still exploring. And I work in my home studio in Amsterdam, in front of my house. And I meet amazing variety of people in different levels of life, in different age of life, in different careers of life, that they all have common contact point. They all have similar life experiences that they have gone through, and they are looking for a window to talk about it. They are looking for an opportunity to process that. It is their choice that when I speak to a person who would sit for me for a portrait, it is their choice how they want to appear in the portrait. And it is a discussion first. You talk to them, you try to find out what they're expecting from the work, and it's a mutual respect to each other. And I find it when people decide to reveal themselves to a portrait completely, they come to a mindset where they are very vulnerable, at the same time very true to themselves, very unique, and they are completely in their form without a mask, without hiding. And I think that is a extremely powerful display of emotions. It's an extremely powerful way of expression for the person who's sitting and the person who's trying to capture it as much as possible. So I think it's a way of meditating for both of us, as the painter and the person who's sitting, and a way of, as I said before, a true connection. And the discussion follows before and after. It's priceless. No, it depends. Sometimes not everybody is capable of sitting in one place without moving. So I find different people in different mindsets and different capabilities of facing that moment. And if I find somebody who is quickly changing and I want to capture those moments separately, I go with my camera. I ask their permission. If they're happy, I take series of pictures. And sometimes they sit straight away and I go for a line drawing, or sometimes I apply charcoal completely on the paper and I try to erase their face out of charcoal. That is the technique I have used in these pieces. But if you don't have time, that they don't have time to give it to you, but still there's a huge story behind that face, I try to photograph and do it with the photograph. But most of the time, 99%, I love the process of sitting with the person that I'm drawing. This is a way of me sharing my life with another person. I love classic artists. I love the work they have done. I love the art history. I read. I try to learn in that way. I appreciate them immensely because I know I can never be that. But art for me is expression. It's a pure expression of emotions. So when it's come to technique, I'm not worried because I know I'm not an artist in that way. I know I do this with a greater purpose for me. And the love I have for art and the respect I have for classic artists is never going down. It is going up. More I read, more I love it. But if you ask me if I regret studying art, no. Because I did a lot of studying, and if art was another study that I had to follow, I don't think I will enjoy it this much. Because then it will become a responsibility as well. Then it will be about grades. It will be about this race that as a South Asian we are grown up to. So I'm glad that I wasn't in that race with art, because I'm never comparing my work with anybody, because there's no point. I know that my work cannot be compared because I did not have that background or the the skill to compete with anybody. So for me, art is a gift. And the satisfaction and happiness is extreme, because I don't know what I'm not doing. I don't know how bad I am. I don't know how many techniques I haven't followed, or what rules I even broke or kept. So it is for me without boundaries, without any limit. It's just the white space, me and my charcoal. Depend on the person. I mean, the people, like little kids, if they have like immense love for art and they want to study, and they go by the masters, the classic masters, and learn their techniques, and then get interested in the art history, and then that is amazing. That's the knowledge. But if anybody wants to experience art, there is no limit. We are born artists, every single one of us. That's my belief. No, I actually set up my ESO there, and I worked with them. No, they were after the fact. They were at home. Some were not injured. Some lost their family members, and some kids were there who were traumatized by the scenery. Like, they were inside the church where the bombing happens, and they were traumatized with the atrocities that they experienced. And I worked with them 3 months, going from Colombo to Katuapitiya, which is in Nigambo area. So 2 hours, 3 hours drive, sometimes every day, sometimes every other day. I was going there, sitting with them, spending time, talking to them, and doing portraits with them. It was hard. I wasn't prepared for that, because when I planned the exhibition, the bombing wasn't there. So my plan was to go there and work with the civil war victims, and that. So it is after 8-9 years passed, and then suddenly 2 weeks before I am about to leave from Netherlands to Sri Lanka, the Easter Sunday bombings happened. There was 11 bomb attacks in one day in churches. So I went to a war-torn country where Muslims and Sinhalese and Christians had divided into several groups, and it was turmoil. I got to work with them, I got to visit them, I got to talk to them, and I wasn't prepared for that. Because I wanted to tell their story. I wanted to talk about what happened to them. It is not an incident just past, then you can give some money and then they will be all right. They needed therapy, they needed long time care, and they needed their stories heard. And I thought it's important that we give that space, we talk about it. Because it was a therapy, medium of therapy, that I connected with them in a different level rather than clicking a picture and walking away. The time that you spend with a person when you're doing a portrait is long, and the exposure you get from a person while you're doing a portrait, sometimes you talk to them and then they tell stories that they wouldn't otherwise. And in this way, they get a chance to empty their chest and express, tell the stories that they was not able to before. So I found it very benefiting for them. I find it most of the time it's mutual. I gain a lot from that. I find my journey easy when I meet people who have gone through pain as same as me or even more than me. It gives me strength to keep walking. It gives me strength to do what I do. So it is mutual, but sometimes it can be either way, more mutual, more beneficial for me or more beneficial for them. But we don't choose it. We just sit on the same level and it goes how it goes. I would say like this, sometimes I do a portrait and I feel it's not enough. I feel that the whole story I'm not able to give through one portrait. Then I do write poetry. Then I do write sometimes one chapter or two about that. Yeah, it's sometimes the portrait is not enough. Sometimes one portrait is not enough. In the past, when I'm practicing, there was this one lady that I spoke and that I shared most of my experiences with, And with her story, I felt one portrait was not enough, and I did 3 portraits of her, 3 sittings with her. It was within 5-6 days time. I think it's instinct, and it's a feeling. You want to tell that story, and if it is not complete, you will feel it, and then you will feel that okay, maybe few words are needed, maybe that issue that I'm trying to bring through that phase need more attention, need more medium to say it out loud. So it depends. And these portraits that I did of Tharu girls, this is only 3 portraits, and I do not feel enough. I feel there's much more to do, and I am in the middle of writing about it a little. While I'm doing the portrait, it's a meditation. It's a complete concentration of mapping every single emotion, the line, the mood, everything as much as possible. As I said, I'm not educated. I don't have much techniques. So I have to work twice hard as a person, as much as a person who would know all the techniques and all the ways to draw realistically. So I have to capture it in my own way, and I put all my being, my soul, my concentration and everything into just capturing that moment. So yeah, as I said, so it becomes therapy, it becomes meditation for me. It's automatically connected because I am drawing that face because that story made sense, that story moved me, and someone's experience defined them in that moment, what they have experienced, how they survived it, and how they're going to keep surviving it. Because sometimes you think when some atrocities or some tragedy or some trauma happen and you go through with it, and it's one time you survived it and it's fine. No. The trauma survivors live it every single day. Every single day they have to conquer that fear. They have to choose life. And it's never ending battle as long as you live. So all I can do is listen to them very carefully, grasp their story, respect them, and then see the aftermath. What are the residue left in their face? What are the things that tell that story through their face? It can be a wrinkle near the ear, near the eye. It can be a way they smile. It can be the eyes, that how they look at you, how the eyes capture the light. It can be any of these very tiny details. So you have to have all your concentrations to even try to capture that. I'm not saying I'm successful. I'm saying I'm doing my best to capture as much as possible. Doing a portrait, first of all, the first stage, after finishing it, there is a satisfaction of completing it for me and the person who's sitting. And then comes the part how I'm going to stage it in the society, whether that person wants that story told or that process ends there. If not, if it is a wider issue that I'm trying to bring, then come the pace where I'm going to place this, where I'm going to find a platform to talk about this. Then the portrait becomes the tool that helps me to communicate this message to the society. So then I have to find outlets, then I have to find places where I can exhibit the portrait that I did and talk about it, and then get response. And then come next stage where maybe I'm able to do something about it. Sometimes just telling the story is doing something about it. As you said, sometimes just telling the story is not enough. For you, it is not enough. You can't sleep because you feel like you didn't do enough. So then you try to find a way of taking the next step, doing something more, writing about it, publishing articles, talking to other groups who are working about that issue or the problem. So it can go in various ways. In Sri Lanka, in Netherlands, yeah, a lot of artists really loved the idea They saw the potential and they saw the necessity of art therapy and bringing art in a different form towards the younger generation, and open the doors not only to the students or the people who study academically, but to anybody who wants to express themselves, who want to find their voice through colors and lines. They took it very well, and a lot of artists in Sri Lanka, including Chandragupta Tenuara, Kingsley, and so many other artists, they helped me a lot. They lift me up, and they keep helping me. I have done one solo exhibition in Sri Lanka, and I have displayed my work in Maastricht, Netherlands, and now I'm doing the residency here in Nepal. They are very sweet, they are very kind, and yes, they praise sometimes, but I invite more conversation about the issue that I'm trying to bring up, the mission behind this art, and the work that I'm going to do. So networking is really important, and I met amazing people, including my colleague in here, Fabienne Francote. I met her in my first solo exhibition in Colombo. So like that, you meet wonderful people, amazing, kind-hearted people who want to be part of your journey, who want to show you more opportunities, who want to lift you up, who want to praise you with words and encourage you to go the journey that you're going. So it is amazing, like when you are courage enough to put your work out, and the response you're getting is a blessing. I love criticism more. Then I can grow, and I know that there is a lot to criticize, and if you want to grow, if you want to develop something, criticism is the key. Constructive criticism is always welcome. Yes. I think that as human beings, nobody is perfect. Nobody have a life that is without trouble, without pain, without experiences that they suffer from. So be brave to talk about it, and everybody needs help sometimes, and a kind heart, a compassionate heart can give much more to this world that money ever could do. And if we want to evolve from where we are as human beings, we need to accept who we are, good and the bad, and we must process the bad experiences of our life and make something good out of it. Give another person the opportunity. If you get the opportunity to talk, give another person your ear, to listen to them, to be kind to them.